Hello there and welcome to the Highball channel. Today we are running through my selection for the Lions squad this year. The Lions is a invitational tour every 4 years that goes to either South Africa, Australia or New Zealand, and this year they're off to South Africa. Now South Africa are the world champions and this is going to be a very difficult test series for the Lions. So let's start with the forwards. So, the loosehead props I have decided to go for is Cian Healy, Wyn Jones and Mako Vunipola. Now, I've gone with Cian Healy because, yes, he had a drop in form when he had those injuries, but he's come back unbelievably and he's back at the peak of his form and he's playing great. Wyn Jones wasn't talked about too much before the Six Nations this year, but had an awesome Six Nations. Played unbelievably for Wales and arguably was a big part of them winning the Six Nations. Mako Vunipola. See, I've maybe picked a bit on reputation here rather than form, but he has proven to be a world-class prop before, and I believe he can get back to that. Whether we see that in the Lions tour, I don't know. It was between Mako or Rory Sutherland really, and I think he just has that extra bit more experience than Rory Sutherland does, having already been on 2 Lions tours. So now let's talk about the hookers I have chosen to take. As you can see, I've decided to take Ken Owens, Luke Cowan-Dickie and Jamie George. Ken Owens I think is nailed on to go on the Lions tour. He's been absolutely phenomenal this year. Just his line out is perfect, his loose work, it's just been great, and he's a great leader on the pitch as well. Luke Cowan-Dickie, he's been great for Exeter for a number of years now, probably just started as an England starter. I always liked him above Jamie George, but I think Jamie George has just made it just because of the lack of depth in the hooker position. Jamie George isn't on his best of form. It could be due to the stuff with like Saracens not playing much before the Six Nations, and also the lack of competition that Saracens have now because they're in the Championship. But I do think Jamie George just makes it just because of the lack of competition in that position. So tighted props I have gone with Kyle Sinclair, Tyg Furlong and Xander Fagerson. So Kyle Sinclair's been really quality for Bristol this year. I think his scrummaging's come on a lot in the last couple of years. I mean, he went on the last Lions tour and was phenomenal in New Zealand. His line breaks for a proper, probably of quality to the team. They add a lot of forward motion, and he can really get past the gain line as a carrier. Tyg Furlong, I think, is world class for a tight head prop. His scrummaging is, I don't think anyone beats him in the world for his scrummaging. And of course, against Scotland, he showed what he can do with his feet. He stepped Finn Russell, didn't he? And you might be surprised to see Xander Fagerson's name there, but I think for Scotland, he's really stepped up recently. His scrummaging was really good. I thought against France he was standout. His carrying in the loose was impressive for a tight head. He won a lot of penalties at the scrum against a very powerful France pack. So I've gone with 5 second rows because, I mean, Warren Gatland's going to be limited because he said he's only selecting a 36-man squad this year compared to the 41-man squad he took to New Zealand. So I've gone with Alan Wyn-Jones, Johnny Gray, Maro Toze, Tyg Byrne and James Ryan. So I've gone with Alan Wyn-Jones. I think he's your captain. I think he goes on the Lions tour as your captain because the leadership he's shown recently phenomenally dragged Wales through that Six Nations sometime. Just a phenomenal leader. And I think I wasn't too sure before the Six Nations whether he actually goes on this tour, but I think he actually, even like skillfully wise, I think he put himself in not just for his leadership qualities, but for his actual performances. I think he's actually put himself into Lions squad as well, because I think he had a great Six Nations. He was winning lineouts. He was back to his best, I think. Next, Johnny Gray. So you see, I think some people underrate Johnny Gray. I mean, I think he's come on phenomenally under Rob Baxter at Exeter. His carrying work has gone to the next level because, of course, that's what Exeter. It's part of Exeter's game plan, that strong carrying in the front five, and I think he's really improved on that. And he's known as one of the best tacklers in world rugby, isn't he? I think there's that statistic that there's more people have been to the moon than have broken a tackle of Johnny Gray, which is unbelievable. And Maritoje, I think there is some questions about him after the Six Nations, but his athletic ability still puts him up there. I think his penalty count has been very concerning, but I think that's also to do with the lack of leadership at England at the minute, and no one dragged him aside and just went, "Stop committing penalties." They kind of just let it happen. Tyke Byrne, another player in this list that wasn't talked about too much before the Six Nations, but some phenomenal performances from him in the Six Nations. Was probably one of the standout performers in that Ireland squad that wasn't the greatest we've seen from Ireland, but I think he was probably one of the standout. And James Ryan just makes it for me. It probably one of his best Six Nations. I mean, he did have that concussion problem, and he's just beaten the likes of Ian Henderson to get in the squad for me. So I've put the back row as one big list because, of course, some of them are very interchangeable of where on the back row they can play. So on the back row I've gone with Justin Tipperick, Hamish Watson, Tom Curry, CJ Stander, Talupe Falatau and Sam Simmons. Justin Tipperick, I mean, he's a phenomenal 7, hard tackler, gets so many turnovers, and he carries well, and he kicks like that try Wales scored in the Six Nations where he kicked it through was phenomenal. You don't see that sort of stuff from forwards all the time, and I was quite amazed. Hamish Watson, Six Nations player of the tournament, he was outstanding. He was world class even. Every single carry he seems to get past the game line, and that's what you want. It just puts your team on the front foot. It lets your backs have space out wide. And the turnovers he got, the turnover against England to win the game, what a turnover that was. I think people haven't talked about that one because it was kind of wasn't talked about because Scotland just kicked it out straight away to win the game. But the turnover, it was phenomenal. And Tom Curry, in a poor England side, was probably the best player in the Six Nations for England. Still getting the turnover, still putting the hits in. I think Tom Curry has to have a pat on the back for basically shining in a very poor team. Like sometimes if you're in a poor team, you might not get seen doing the good stuff because everyone else looks bad, but he was still very good. And I've gone with CJ Stander because I think he's reliable. He'll make your yards, he'll put your tackles in, he'll get your turnovers. He's just a very reliable number 8, and it'll be nice to see him in South Africa playing against his home country where he was born in what will be his last ever game of rugby as he's retiring after the Summer International Series. Talupe Falatau, he's had a great season for Bath this year. I think a lot of people had written him off as going on the Lions tour just because of his poor run of form for a couple of years, but he's really come alive again and back to his best rugby. I think he had a couple of injuries that had kept him back a bit, and now this is probably one of my shock inclusions and one of my shock exclusions as well. I've gone with Sam Simmons over Billy Vunipola. I think Sam Simmons has to go. I can't understand Eddie Jones not picking him for England. The top try scorer in the Premiership, his athletic ability, how fast he is, he's an animal and been incredible for Exeter this season. When Exeter probably haven't been as good as they have previous seasons, he's kept them in that top 4 hunt. And I don't know what Eddie Jones is thinking. If you're wondering why I've left Billy Vunipola out, I don't think he's been as good as he was before his kind of run of injuries. He's looking overweight actually, and he doesn't seem to have the drive to get better. seems to plateau. I think Sam Simmons has just earned the shirt more than Billy Vunipola has. So this is where I think people start to get shocked at who I've put in. So the scrum halves I would take on the Lions tour are Gareth Davis, Ali Price, and Danny Kerr. So Gareth Davis, I'll get on to Ali Price and Danny Kerr after I've talked about Gareth Davis. They're the kind of two controversial ones. But Gareth Davis, I think he's been great for a few years. I think some people have issues with him. Sometimes his game management's not great at the end of games, like we saw against Ireland where he kicked it away and almost cost Wales the game. But he's so quick. The interceptions he can make and the pace in defence, he gets off the line and puts pressure on, and he's always quick to get the ball off the back of the ruck, and that's what I want from a modern day nine. I think it's gone the past of nines being a more controlling. I think they need to have a bit of pace on them now, and that's why I've also gone with Ali Price and Danny Kerr. Ali Price, lightning quick. Concerns about his box kicking at times, but I think that was a systemic error with Scotland rather than a fault of Ali Price. I don't think Scotland were setting up right for the box kick. They weren't putting the guards in the right places. But Danny Kerr, phenomenal season for Harlequins, and that's why he makes it above some of the other scrum halves. Like, I haven't taken Conor Murray just because, or Jamison Gibson Park, just because I don't think either of them are playing great for Ireland. Neither are helping out Johnny Sexton. I don't think they're having very good years. And same with Ben Youngs. He doesn't offer you anything other than a pass or a kick, and I want that sniping around the ruck. I think that's how you're going to have to beat South Africa. You have to be unpredictable, and I think you'll see that where I've gone with my fly-halves as well. So the fly-halves I've chosen to take to South Africa are Finn Russell, Dan Biggar, and Owen Farrell. Finn Russell, a lot of people don't like him, but I love him. As a proud Scotland season ticket holder, I think Finn Russell just offers you that unpredictability that you're going to need to unlock that South Africa defence. And Finn Russell, I know some games he has this kind of game every few that doesn't go right, but if he can find that consistency against South Africa, then he'll be unbelievable. I think he's starting to settle a bit with Scotland, so he's not going for that wonder pass all the time like he used to, but he's still got that bit of quality in him to turn a game on its head when it needs to. And I've given Dan Biggar as a second option because I think if you got Finn Russell and he's out of form, you do need that second plan. I think Dan Biggar's that perfect second plan for you. He offers you that stability, that bit of calmness compared to Finn. And I've also gone with Owen Farrell. I've put him in fly halves, but I think he could also play inside centre. Especially with the 36-man squad, you're going to need that versatility. And I think Owen Farrell gives you that. He can play inside centre, he can play fly half. I'd be surprised if he plays fly half, but I've just put him in there because I think you kind of need that third fly half option. That's why I've just put him in fly halves for now. And he's been out of form, but I still think he's one of the best in the world. Some other options that you could have gone with, the likes of Johnny Sexton. I just think he's past it a bit, to be honest. I don't think he offers you enough in attack. I don't think he offers you enough in defence. He gets aimed a lot, and that South Africa pack will hunt him, and he's quite injury prone at the minute. I just can't see him being selected personally. But you never know. You could see him there. And George Ford's a possible to go. I think he's probably above Johnny Sexton. He is a very skillful fly half. I just think he gets overshadowed possibly in that England squad, and he might not be picked. I think inside centre is possibly one of the weaker positions past your first choice for the Lions. So I think your first choice is probably going to be Robbie Henshaw. Robbie Henshaw, phenomenal Six Nations, phenomenal inside centre, always carries hard, makes his tackles. I think he's one of the first names on the team sheet for the Lions. And the second inside centre I've gone with is Jonathan Davis. Of course, recently moved into the position, playing outside centre a lot. And he offers you that versatility because he can play both centres. And of course, you kind of got your third inside centre on that list with Owen Farrell. So I can see Jonathan Davis playing inside or outside, but there's not a lot of pass depth in the current squads, national squads, unless Manu Tuolangi suddenly finds a bit of fitness and comes back in time for the squad announcement on May the 6th. But I don't. It doesn't seem likely at the minute. So it seems like Manu Tuolangi could miss out on the Lions tour. So the outside centres I've decided to pick are George North, Henry Slade, Chris Harris. George North is another Welshman that was possibly not talked about too much before the Six Nations. People have thought he'd faded away a bit, but he found his new position in outside centre. Because I think the wing, he's probably a bit of ineffectual there now, but he has a lot of effect in the outside centre position with he's quick, he's got hard lines, and it kind of removes that kind of his finishing had kind of disappeared. A bit of his yard of pace had possibly slipped away compared to the new wingers coming through as well. But I think he has found himself in that outside centre position and is really good in the Six Nations. And I've gone with Henry Slade as well. I think his skill is unbelievable. I think England don't use him right. I don't think they get him out to them wide channels well enough where he can open up that space for Johnny May and for Watson and for whoever's playing on that wing for England. And I think Henry Slade really just has that skill. He's shown at Exeter how good he can be rather than playing at England. At Exeter is phenomenal. And I've gone with Chris Harris. I think a lot of people might be surprised at that selection, but I think you're going to need a lot of defensive stability against some of these South African teams. They come at you hard in them centre channels. And I think Chris Harris, there's no one better in the world rugby at the minute at defending them channels. I mean, even against France, he just absolutely smashed Vakatawa and was unbelievable throughout the Six Nations defensively. He might not be the best attacking centre, but defensively is phenomenal. And I think he could be there as a second option if we're getting overrun by the centres or the wingers. So I'm only taking 3 wingers because of the obvious lack of squad depth they're going to have this year with only the 36-man squad being taken. But I think the reason I've only taken 3 wingers is because there's a few other wingers in the squad. So there's like George North that can be potentially put on the wing. And in the fullbacks, I've actually got Anthony Watson that could play wing as well. So there's potentially 5 wingers actually there. So I've gone with Louis Rees-Zammit, Johnny May and Duhan van der Merwe. With Louis Rees-Zammit, unbelievable for a 19. Is he 18 or 19? Unbelievable. The speed, the skill. Them 2 tries he scored against Scotland. I've not seen a winger that young look so experienced at finishing before. And he has to go. He's that good. He just has to go. Johnny May, we all know about Johnny May, almost catching up with England's top try scoring record. So quick, but he didn't have the best Six Nations, but I think he has shown the quality he can be before. And I don't think England, as I said with Henry Slade, use them wide channels effectively with the quality they have on them wide channels. I've also taken Duhan van der Merwe. I just think Duhan van der Merwe is so good. I mean, he topped in the Six Nations, he topped the defenders beaten by more than double anyone else, and he won the top try scorer. 5 tries in 5 games. He is so strong. He gets past 2 defenders every time he carries it in. He gives you that extra line coming off his wing, and he can beat players on his wing if you get the ball to him. And he'll score tries if you get the ball to him every time. I know he looked a bit suspect defensively playing for Edinburgh against Racing. Got a big handoff to the face, but I think the attacking side of his game is still beneficial for the Lions if they take him. The strength he has will, especially if you line him up against Cheslin Colby. Cheslin Colby's not always the best defensively, and they'll be lined up against each other. I could see Duhan van der Merwe doing really well in South Africa. So last but not least, we have the full-backs. So I've gone with Stuart Hogg and Anthony Watson. I think Stuart Hogg's a nailed-on player to go on the Lions. Possibly vice-captain as well. The way he's led the Scottish team over the last year, he's been really good. And he is a world-class fullback. Probably up there with the best fullbacks in the world, possibly with Bowden Barrett and Damien McKenzie. He is phenomenal. His vision for space and his step and how he creates ball for his wingers, he is very good and probably been good for the last kind of 10 years. Anthony Watson, his footwork and his ability to beat the first man, I would have him as a fullback. I know some people would take him as a wing, but I think he's probably. I'm always surprised why England don't play him at fullback. He's arguably England's best fullback. I don't think Elliot Daly is that anymore, or ever has been. I think possibly the player that's probably unlucky to miss out, and it's probably just because of the size of the squad that Warren Gatland is taking, is Liam Williams. I think he's a very good player. I think he'll struggle to get in there above Stuart Hogg and Anthony Watson. And that back three is full. It's probably the only back three you can take because of the size of the squad. I don't really understand why he's taken 5 less than the New Zealand tour. Because he had to bring people in at New Zealand because of the size of the squad. He had to bring 6 more players in halfway through the tour because of injury and so on and so forth. It might be because of the COVID restrictions on bubbles and stuff. I'm not too sure. But anyway, that is my Lion squad for the South Africa tour of 2021. Let me know who you would have in. Let me know who you would take out of mine. And Warren Gatland will name his squad on May the 6th. Less than a month away. It'll be interesting to see who he has. I'm also surprised he's not named his coaches yet. We'll see who's in his coaching team. But for now, thank you very much. And this was the High Ball.